Have you ever wished that you can sit next to a pro photographer and edit the exact same photograph? Well, then this video is for you. There's a raw file linked in the description below, and you can follow along all the edits that I make in Lightroom Classic. In the previous editing video, I edited one photograph in one way. This video is a little bit different. I'm going to edit the same photograph, but in two completely different ways, to demonstrate the fact that the way you shoot out in the field really has an impact on what's possible in editing afterwards. I'll go into more detail as I go along with my edits. I'm Danielle. I'm a professional photo guide in Africa, and I lead photo safaris for photographers of all skill levels. So let's go. I've chosen a giraffe image to work on for this video, and you'll see the raw file linked in the description below. And what I want to do for this session is I want to show you two different edits of the same photograph. Reason being, often in wildlife photography, we have a dark subject and a light background. And what we tend to do is place a lot of emphasis on high key photography, meaning we expose almost for the dark parts of the subject, and we blow out everything else around it or behind it. And that's taking it to the extreme. But there's another option, and that's to expose closer to zero while not clipping highlights and keeping the exposure fairly neutral. And that's what I did here. By doing that with the dynamic range of the cameras nowadays, you can pull out a lot of the shadows and you can decrease the highlights in post-production. So when and this will change the way that you take photos in the field. You're not going to expose necessarily at +3 and cause yourself irrecoverable highlights. You're going to expose more sort of to neutral, not too dark, at a lowish ISO. This obviously you can't pull out too many shadows at a very high ISO, but in a neutral situation like this, it's not necessary to completely overexpose. And that's what I'm going to show you here, the two different edits for what's possible when you shoot that way. Now first I'm going to change, I would do noise reduction first. It's not required on this image because it's not a very noisy image, but if you do AI noise reduction, then now is the time. Then I'm going to change the crop. I'm going to straighten it, looking at the horizon line as well as my subject, and then I'm going to bring in the subject more to the center of the frame there, but not completely center. What you'll notice, I actually don't know what this is, but what you'll notice is there's a distraction over there. I'm going to remove that using the remove tool. But before I do that, because of this object touching the edge of the frame, I'm going to move it away from the edge of the frame. Reason being that Lightroom doesn't do very well with removal when the object's touching the edge of the frame. I just tend to, if I can, move it away, do the removal, and then crop back into my original crop. So I'm going to use the remove tool, and I'm just going to select that area there. I have generative AI and object detection selected, and I'm just going to speed this up for the video. I'd say Lightroom did a good job. It left something over there, and that's the reason why I often leave myself an extra crop. What you can also do, so now I'm cropping out that little blue bit there. What you can also do is fix whatever it didn't do right with this tool over here. So with your heal tool, the middle one, you can then go in and you can select whatever it didn't get right, and you can just get rid of that instead of going through the whole remove, cycling through the options, letting it do it again. You just jump in with the good old-fashioned heal tool and get rid of any mistakes that Lightroom left behind. Now we have a clean background here. You can also remove this. We'll probably do that as well. Right, so looking at the horizon, adjust it again if it doesn't look right to you. Right, we've got this giraffe pretty well exposed, but the background is bright, the giraffe's a little bit dark. So I'm going to start with my exposure slider, and I'm just going to go up to where nothing looks out of the ordinary. So I'm watching the highlights in the background, I'm watching the highlights on the subject, and I'm watching my histogram. So there's a pretty good baseline to start with. Then I would play around with my highlight shadows, whites and blacks. I'm not going to delve into the tone curve in detail in this video. I might do a video in the future just about the tone curve, but I'm just trying to demonstrate to you the options of editing a photograph when you haven't completely overexposed it for a high key effect in camera. And so we're dealing with this as an example of that. So I'm not going to do too much of the tone curve. I'm going to show you a second edit too. So I don't want to make the video too long. I'm looking at this as a whole. I'm pretty happy with this. Now I'm going to work on the sky. I'm going to do a sky mask. Let's see how well Lightroom does with the sky. It has included bits of the giraffe, which I'm going to subtract by using a object selection. I'm going to select the giraffe as an object to subtract from the sky mask. There we go. I'm going to toggle O for the overlay to show you where the mask is applied. And now all I'm going to do to the sky is decrease the temperature slightly. If there are many clouds in the sky, then dehaze works quite well, but this is a typical winter sky in Africa, so I'm just going down on the temperature to bring back some form of blue in the sky. I don't want to do it too much. I might do some saturation, play around with it, but it mustn't look abnormal. It must still look very realistic. Okay, I'm happy with the sky. Looking at the giraffe, I would probably lighten up the shadows on the giraffe just by using a brush. So I'm going to select a mask, a brush, up on the shadows. Remember, you can slow the video down and you can go back if it is too fast for you. You can choose the speed and you can just hop back in the video and repeat what I've said. So I'm just brushing in an increase in shadows. It's a bit too much for me, so I'm going to go down again just to show you the overlay. That's where I've brushed, and that's what I'll do. That brings out the giraffe shadows. Then I'm going to select the whole giraffe as an object. I'm going to cover the whole giraffe and the little oxpeckers on it. Good job, Lightroom. And then I'll add texture and clarity to it. I'm looking at the whole image and I'd like to add some contrast. Now this is where your tone curve obviously would be really helpful, but for now I'm just going to stick to this. Highlights down, shadows up a little bit probably, whites down, blacks up, a bit more contrast. It literally is changing things and seeing what it does. Looking at your image saying, I think I need more shadows lifted, or I need deeper blacks, or I need lower highlights. That's what you look at. Check yourself. That's the original. That's how far we've come in the edit. I quite like it. I would add a bit of vibrance to it maybe, just to pop it slightly. And then whites I do find pretty good to just pop an image. As I've said on my previous video, I do play around with them. Sometimes you have to take them down though when there's too much of them and they make the image yellow. Right, so there we have a well-edited color photograph, before and after. There's a slight bit of clipping which I'm not too concerned about, and the rest is very well exposed. So that's the one option. We've pulled out shadows, we've decreased highlights in the sky, everything is looking good. Now for the next image, and I'm pressing Command and C, and I'm going to just copy the crop onto the next image. I'm going to paste it onto this image, only the crop. So this is a virtual copy of the same image, and I've already demonstrated to you how to take that out, so I won't do it again. This one I'm going to turn into black and white. Now we're getting to the high key part of it. The second option, if you've exposed it neutrally, sort of mid-range, then you can change it into a high key always afterwards. Not if you've shot it at a very high ISO, because pulling out shadows will increase or will bring out the noise that is present in the photograph at that high ISO. It will exaggerate it. So I'm pulling the exposure up, watching my histogram. Nothing's clipping, but the idea is for the background to blow out and for the subject to pop on a white canvas background. Now I know that this side of the giraffe is really bright, and this is what would have happened in camera as well had you exposed +2 or +3, depending on your composition. So I'm keeping that in mind. I do notice it and I will work on it but I'm mostly looking at the blank canvas behind the giraffe. So I'm happy there with that black and white conversion. You can also use your profiles over here. Just show that again. Over there, the 4 squares, and then you can go to black and white. I often do that to get a good baseline start. Now I want to get back this detail on the giraffe's face, and you can either use an object selection just on the side of the face, but more subtle would be a brush with a slight feather. And I'm just going to go highlights down. Remember, you can pause the video or slow it down if it's too fast for you. I'm going down on the slider here, and I'm going to paint in. I'll show you my overlay. I'm not too worried if it goes across onto the white background. I just don't want the giraffe to blend into the background. So I've selected the highlights, and then you can adjust the slider. I might risk it on the exposure. Yes, that looks pretty good. And then with black and white, your leeway, it's a bit more forgiving for a grungy look. So I'm going to create a mask again, and I'm going to select the whole giraffe, and then I'm going to just add texture and clarity into the giraffe because I don't want texture and clarity in the background. So I've added some texture, some clarity. It's not everyone's cup of tea, I know. I'm just showing you the options when you take a photo in a certain way. I'm looking at it as a whole, thinking it can do with some more exposure now that I've brought back highlights in the giraffe's face. There we go. Now I like something to have context. I don't like it to be cut out on a white background. It depends what goal you're working towards, but I do like to show that it isn't floating in mid-air and that it's actually grounded here on an open plane. Now what I would do with the background, if I want it faded more, is I'll create a background mask. Pretty good. And then I will use the dehaze slider in the opposite direction. So I'm not going to haze it to the right, I'm going to dehaze it. And that just lifts the blacks ever so slightly. So you can choose, if it wasn't enough, by increasing your exposure. If you feel the background needs fading even more, then dehaze is a very good way to subtly dull down the background. And there's your black and white edit without any clipping. Beautiful high key image. It works in black and white. High key doesn't work that well in color. I prefer it in black and white because you're washing out a lot. And you can choose whether you want it really contrasty or not so contrasty. And again, this is where your tone curve would come in to be useful. But in this case, I just want to demonstrate to you. This is option 2, and this was option 1. 2 completely different photographs which both started from the same image, in which you didn't completely overexpose by a +3 in camera, and you could still work on recovering highlights and shadows beautifully afterwards. Now this is something that people would hang on their wall, whereas less likely to hang this on their wall, and that's why it's always good to leave yourself the option to do either this in post-production or this. Changes the way you shoot. And if you have any questions on this, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to chat to you about this. That's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please remember to subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.